Let me convey the apologies of Professor Razi. Guido Razi, who is the executive director of this agency, is unfortunately unwell, and yesterday night he asked me to present in his place the very first introduction and welcome to the agency. Believe me, it's not a diplomatic disease, he's really ill, and he wanted to be there because he really enjoys welcoming people to the EMA and to showcase what we're doing here and to welcome you. So I will start after this just a word of apologies. I will start by the health and safety remark. So this is a non-smoking building. After all, we're doing public health, so you need to go to designated smoking area outside of the building if you want to smoke. We have a high security in this building, as you've seen. Your passes allow you to go to the ground floor and come back, but you cannot go to other floors. And please do not enter other meeting rooms because this is not planned to happen. You have toilet on this floor, and we will bring to you at the breaks and the lunch some food and drinks. In principle, please do not bring open drinks into the room because of our electronic material, and we don't want to spoil it. We have signage everywhere, but most of all, if you need help, ask us. We're here to engage with you, to talk to you. We have blue badges, blue lanyards to our badges, so you will recognize people from the EMA. You have gray ones. And so do not hesitate to talk to us. We will have a group picture later on, around 5:30. We probably will, weather permitting, go outside to have a stare so we can see everybody, because otherwise it'll be a big group. And we will have this networking event this evening where we go to -1, where we have a space where we can do this. And there will be people from EMA. And please, talk to us, between you. You will have little signs that we offer, not an obligation, if you want to be recognized and the people know where you're coming from. We will send you the presentation after electronic way. We will send you the presentation. We will send you a certificate of presence as well, if you need them. And you can leave your material in the room. I wouldn't leave my wallet if I were you, but there is no risk in this building. We are hopefully quite honest. But more important, we would like you to fill in our survey. This is the second edition of this meeting. We had a survey last time, and unfortunately, some people didn't fill it. Fortunately, everybody seemed to be happy, but we would like also criticism. We want to know what we can improve. We want suggestions. We want ideas. So let us know what you would like to hear from us, because we intend to renew this exercise in about 6 months, Brexit permitting. And so this is the objective of this meeting, is really to become open and engage with you. And we have a Twitter account and hashtag, if you are interested, which is a # EMA International. And so you're welcome to tweet. So, next, please. This is my now more serious talk about the EMA. So we have, as I said, done the first edition, and the first edition of this meeting was included only non-EU regulators, because we work as a network of EU member states, so we felt that was not the first target, because people work here, so they know what we do. And we also invited non-governmental organization, because we know that they have an interest in public health that we share, and we wanted also to show openness and to listen from them to what they need from us. This time we have decided to expand even further and to invite academia, because academia, and many of you, probably half of you are from universities or other research institutions, and you are actually providing the main source of expertise that we use in our procedures. So we think it's important that you have access to see what we do and that we can discuss with you. We want to show that we foster excellence, science, and that we do a good job at evaluating medicine before approval and after approval. We also do this is not the topic of these 2 days, but we also do veterinary medicines, not just human medicines, and we've decided to target this in a different meeting. We are in charge of innovation. We see most, if not all, innovative medicines in Europe. We work with our counterparts across the world, so we discuss innovation with the FDA, with Japan, with Australia, with Health Canada. Some of you are also in the room, and you're very welcome. But at the end, our main target are patients. And what we do is for patients. We try not to forget it. We do it for rare diseases. We do it for pediatric patients. We do it for elderly, pregnant women. And this is always at the back of our minds when we discuss medicines and the condition of their use. So we are in a world that is more and more global, especially for medicines. The manufacturing is global. We source our starting materials from China, India. We then move them across the world to manufacture them elsewhere. We have seen huge changes in manufacturing across the years with now more and more biologicals. And so it is changing. The complexity is increasing. The development is becoming more and more difficult. There is also at the same time changes in the way we assess medicines. We are relying more on real-world evidence. This is changing, but this is not an easy turn to make. We are also changing the way maybe we are going to do clinical trials. You know that new methodology is coming into discussion. We will have to use artificial intelligence. We are considering genome editing. So all these things are coming to us, challenging us, which is always good, asking us for more expertise from outside, maybe the usual expert, our comfort zone, I would say. So we really have a tough job to do, and we can only do it with you. So this is why you're here today, and I will stop here and welcome you all for this today. So please remember, intervene. We've tried to limit the presentation to rather short presentation, so you have time for discussion, questions. So think questions, challenge, engage. Have a nice day. So it's my pleasure to welcome Riccardo Luigetti. Riccardo Luigetti, maybe I should have introduced myself. I'm the head of International Affairs, and Riccardo Luigetti is part of the team of International Affairs. Riccardo, please.
Thank you very much. I'm very proud of being to give the first speech, actually, of these 2 days, which I hope they will be very, very interesting for you. I have to say from the beginning, this first module will be, the aim of this first module will be to give you some basic information that should help to follow the other modules. So for some of you, maybe the information on this first module will be very simple and you will know what we're going to say. But for those of you who are already experts and know our system, I can assure that there will be other modules with much more in-depth presentations and details. So we will start with a video, which I hope you can enjoy, on how medicines are authorized in Europe.
Good news! A new medicine has been approved for your disease. So how did this happen? Bringing you the latest medicine science can offer takes many years of work. First, scientists develop a medicine that they think could treat your illness. Tests in the lab determine if it could work. If it passes that stage, clinical trials in people check that the medicine does what it's expected to do, and it's safe. To then make this medicine available to patients in Europe, a company needs the green light from the European Medicines Agency, or EMA. All the information collected during the lab tests and clinical studies goes to the agency. There, experts from EU member states assess the evidence. If the benefits of the medicine are greater than its risks, EMA recommends to the European Commission that the medicine can be marketed across the EU, Iceland, Liechtenstein and Norway. And while the medicine is on the market, the agency continues to monitor it. EMA is part of a network that is there for you when you most need it, so that treatments you can trust are available wherever you are in Europe.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed this simple and short video, and now with a proper presentation. With this first one, I want to somehow explain what the European Union is, and I will introduce the European Union regulatory system for medicines. Of course, the European Union, some of you already know what it is, but again, it might be important for someone coming from outside the Union. The European Union is a union of 28 independent and sovereign member states, all located in Europe. So there are 28 member states currently in the European Union. You might see that contrary to someone outside the continent seems to think Switzerland is not there, and the UK is still there. The European Economic Area is formed by the European Union and 3 more countries, which are Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway. I'm saying this because these 3 countries have as regards medicines, more or less the same rights and duties of the 28 member states. So when we speak about the European or the European Union regulatory system for medicines, we refer to 31 countries. Some key facts about the European Union. The population is 500 million. We have a gross domestic product of more or less 13 trillion euros, which makes the European Union the biggest market in the world. Although the population is less than 1/10 of the world population, the global sales of medicines is more than 1/4. And just to give you an idea of the complexity of this we're dealing with here, we have in the European Union 28 member states and 24 official languages. The European Union, one of the best achievement of the European Union is the so-called single market, which works through a standardized system of laws that apply to all its member states. So the same rules and procedures apply to all the 28 member states, and in the case of medicines, to the 3 member states forming the European Economic Area. Also, in order to be sure that all the member states work at the same level and apply the same scientific standards, before they join, they have to comply with the so-called acquis communautaire, which is the body of laws and rules applying to all the member states of the European Union. And in this slide, you also have some more explanation of the single market with citations from the Treaty of Rome, which is the treaty with which the European Community, now European Union, has been formed. So, about the European Union regulatory network for medicines, I hope this slide gives you the idea of what it is. It's a complex machine, but nevertheless, it's very efficient. So I would probably compare it to a Formula One machine, something complex but very efficient. And the main parts are 50 national regulatory authorities in the member states. It's, there are 50, and this might seem a strange number, 28 member states and 50 regulatory authorities, but this is because some of them are responsible for human products, some of them for veterinary products, and some of them for both human and veterinary products. Then there is a European institution, the European Commission, which is responsible for the administrative acts, to make the decisions official. And then the European Medicines Agency, which has a coordinating role, so keeps all the parts of these machines together. A system like that, so complex, can only work if it's fully transparent. And we have many ways we're very proud of the transparency of our system, and there are several ways to ensure that it's very transparent. We have to manage conflict of interest, and all our experts working for us, all the staff, the management board, etc., must not have any financial or other interest that could affect their impartiality, and their declaration of interests are published on our website. Also, the EMA assessment is carried out by a rapporteur and co-rapporteur, so there are, at least at the beginning, two parallel assessments, independent from each other, and then they join together. So this also helps to ensure independence and independence of judgment. Anyway, every decision is discussed at our committees, where there are 30 or more people will see about this, and of course, everyone has to agree on the decision, or in certain cases, decisions have to be taken by majority. But it's not the decisions of one person or one member state. It's a collegial decision in any case. All our assessment reports are published. You can search in Google for European Public Assessment Reports, for example, and you will see that every medicine authorized here has an assessment report published in the website, where you can find the reasons why it has been published, the scientific discussion that has brought to the authorization, etc., etc. I have to say this slide focused to on EMA, but similar considerations apply to national competent authorities around Europe, around the European Union. So how medicines are authorized? We've seen a little bit in the video, but I will tell you about what procedures we have available. There are different, I want to say from the beginning that there are different authorization routes, but the rules applied, the standards applied are the same, irrespective of what authorization route is followed for the authorization. So we have the centralized procedure, which is managed here at EMEA, and we still have national procedures, which are managed at national level by national competent authorities. The centralized procedure is a single EU-wide assessment and authorization valid throughout the European Union. So the application is submitted here at EMEA, and it is only one application which is valid for the whole European Union. The assessment is done here at EMEA through our committees, the CHMP for human products, which is the Committee for Human Medicinal Products. And the EMA, after assessment by the CHMP, gives a recommendation to the European Commission on whether or not to grant a marketing authorization. And then the formal act, the administrative act, the final decision is taken by the European Commission, which grants the marketing authorization. So the centralized procedure is mandatory for most innovative medicines and critical therapeutic areas, and this is because the law, the European law wants to ensure that patients in different member states have the same level of access to innovative and important medicines, no matter in what member states they live. And also, as I have already touched upon, EMA enables one application, one assessment, one marketing authorization for the whole of the European Union. So, as I said already, centralized procedure has a mandatory scope. Certain medicines have to come through the centralized procedure if to be authorized. This includes human medicines for the treatment of HIV, cancer, diabetes, neurodegenerative diseases, autoimmune and other immune dysfunctions, and viral diseases. Also, medicines derived from biotechnology processes, such as genetic engineering, are in the mandatory scope of the centralized procedure, as well as advanced therapy medicines, such as gene therapy, somatic cell therapy, or tissue engineered medicines. These have to come through the EMA to be authorized. And also officially designated orphan medicinal products, which are, as you probably know, medicines used to cure rare diseases. There is also an optional scope, but for certain medicines it is the applicant choice to go through the centralized procedure or to follow national procedures. This applies to new active substances and to non-active substances, which represent a significant innovation, a significant therapeutic, scientific, or technical innovation. Also, the centralized procedure can be used for certain products which are non-active substances. They're not a significant innovation, but their authorization is in the interest of patients and at community level. And this applies to certain generics, which are actually assessed here. Then we have national procedures. We have the decentralized procedure, mutual recognition procedures, and purely national procedures. The decentralized procedure, for the decentralized procedure, the decentralized procedure is applicable to medicines not yet authorized in the European Union that do not fall in the mandatory scope of the centralized procedure. Companies can apply to one or more of the European member states at the same time, but not necessarily all of them. The mutual recognition procedure is used for medicines already authorized in the European Union in one or more of the member states when companies want to extend this authorization to other member states. So in this case, companies apply for recognition of the authorization already given by one or more of the member states to other member states. Then there are purely national procedures, but according to the legislation, they only can be used for medicines not authorized already in the European Union, and when the application is only submitted to one of the member states, because if this is already authorized, if the medicine is already authorized, then they have to go through the mutual recognition. Having said that, I have to say that many generics and medicines with non-active substances are still authorized by national competent authorities. So unless it's a very innovative medicine, it's quite likely that the medicines we take are authorized by national competent authorities, have been authorized by national competent authorities. So how it works, for decentralized and mutual recognition procedure, a reference member states is identified which carries out the assessment on behalf of the Union. Then the other member states involved, which are called the concerned member states, can object to the assessment done by the reference member state. And normally, at the end, there is agreement. If there isn't, we have a group here called the Coordination Group for Mutual Recognition and Decentralized Procedure, which tries to solve these agreements, and this works in probably 99% or more of cases. But if still there is disagreement, the application can be referred to the EMEA, to our committees actually, and they discuss, and at the end, the opinion of the CHMP is mandatory for all the member states. So even if national procedures are used, the legislation ensures that there are no differences between what is authorized in different member states. So I have finished. In conclusion, the EU regulatory system is complex, but is still one of the most advanced in the world and one of the most efficient, I would add. It's a single system. There are no, different systems in the member states, and however, there are different authorization routes, but the rules are common. There is only one set of common rules. Of course, this is by working closely together, the member states avoid the duplication and share the workload. We will see more later on this, but this is really, really important. And last thing I want to say is that the diversity of experts involved in the regulation of medicines in the European Union encourage the exchange of knowledge, ideas, and best practice between scientists, all striving for the highest standards for medicines regulation. So these contacts, this working together really helps also science and to evolve and to be better. Of course, this was a very quick presentation to explain something that could take probably months. But if you want to know more about the procedure, the European procedures for market authorization, there is a link to a document called the Notice to Applicants, which will give you a lot more information than what I have given you today. Thank you for your attention.
So thank you, Riccardo. Don't worry, this was a dry part where you're still awake and not tired. This is a bit of our daily business, and it may seem a little bit, but you will see through the other presentation during the 2 days that this becomes a sort of natural process. So to sum up, we work with consensus. So we are diverse. You also have diverse accents, as you can hear. And we work with consensus mostly by joining forces and expertise. And this is how we've been working for the last 40 years or so. So do you have questions to Riccardo just now, immediately? And then we'll proceed, because to break a little bit the presentation, I'd rather take a few questions. Don't hesitate, don't be shy. The first one is the most difficult. After that, it will flow naturally. Yes, please. Could you, sorry, I should have explained. You need to take the microphone, otherwise people who are on the broadcast will not hear you. And
will we get the presentations at the end?
You will get them by email.
Okay.
Yeah, you will get all the presentation by email. Could you please introduce yourself when you speak, so other people will know who you are? Thank you, please.
Yeah, I'm Tino Hammer. I'm an academic from Dresden, from the university.
Welcome. And you need to release the microphone after you've spoken, so the little light should go off, because otherwise other people will not be able to talk. Other questions?
If a medicine's been approved elsewhere, say the FDA or NICE, does that give a more accelerated process, or is it still a very independent process from the beginning?
There will be a lot about it later, but just to say, at the moment we don't have a parallel assessment. Everyone is responsible for its own decisions, but at the same time, a lot of products, as we will see, are discussed before the application is submitted between us, for example, and FDA. So there is, and Japan too, and other let's say, competent authorities around the world. So, yeah, it's not a formalized, accelerated assessment, but still there is discussion, and the competence of the various experts in the different regions are put together.
So maybe I can intervene here, just to say that we don't recognize the approval done by other regulatory authorities. That's not how it works. But we share a lot of issues. We have regular teleconference on various topics, what we call cluster or platform, mostly with the FDA, but now most of them include actually other regulatory agencies, Japan, Health Canada, Australia, regularly every month, and we discuss the difficulties in the assessment. So we're not necessarily in line. We probably have 10% of divergences in approval. And if I may correct you, because I suppose you're British, maybe you have not introduced yourself? Edinburgh, yeah. So sorry, Scottish. NICE does not approve medicines. NICE approve medicine to be in the NHS, in the public system, to be reimbursed. But first, you need an approval either by the EU or by the MHRA. So they are only a second step, because they are belonging to what we call health technology assessment bodies, which come after the agreement on benefit risk. We have a question.
Hi, it's Jason Bauer from the NGO Mari Stopes International. I was just wondering if, is it randomly allocated who's going to be the reference agency that carries out the assessment, or can manufacturers decide themselves and cherry pick and apply it to whichever regulatory authority they choose?
The applicant can express a preference, but if we're talking about it's the centralized procedure, then the applicant can express a preference for the rapporteur, but it's the committee which makes the decision. If we're talking about the decentralized and mutual recognition procedure, yes, it's up to the applicant really to choose the reference member state, to apply for to one of the member states as reference member state.
They only in the mutual recognition and decentralized, they can express preferences, but they are not assessing. They have no say on the assessment. The benefit-risk determination is done by the regulatory authorities. The companies can come to answer questions, but they are not part of the decision-making.
I'm Hacer Coşkun Çetintaş from Turkish Medicines and Medical Device Agency. Is there any exception regarding to centralized procedure for biosimilar? Is this procedure compulsory for all biosimilars? Thank you.
Yes. It is biosimilars need to be submitted. I mean, the application needs to be submitted to the EMA through the centralized procedure.
They are biological, therefore they must.
Paola Minghetti from Milano, University of Milano. Sometimes it seems to me that's happened, that the same CTD is presented like a national application and also a decentralized application by different firms. How we can avoid this? Or we have to accept that?
There is no possibility to apply simultaneously to both the centralized and the decentralized system. That's not possible. The companies have to choose. What is possible is that the same active substance is used and developed by different companies, and then they have the right to choose unless they are through the mandatory scope. So in that case, they would all come to the agency anyway. But this using the same active substance is mostly true for generics. It's not true for new innovative. They have what we call me-toos, very closely related, probably targeting the same receptor, the same type of mechanism, but they are not identical. The generics are by definition the same active substance. The salt can be different, the presentation can be different, but at the end it's more or less the same. But then they will have to build their application with a cross-reference to the what we call originator, i.e. the first product which they are copying. And then they will only produce for most of them bioequivalent studies to say, if you give the same dose, you will get the same result because you have the same exposure in the plasma.
Yes, but what's happened is that with the same CTD, yes, of course, are generics, okay, but the same CTD can be presented by different applicant.
Yeah, CTD stands for Common Technical Document, which is the reference template for application, which is coming from the ICH structure, which we'll explain also, and I guess Martin will explain that. So yes, they can reuse the same application if it's the same generic. They can. There is nothing to prevent it as long as the results are true and robust. Why would we not accept generics provided by different companies? What at the end, again, think of what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to protect the patient. So if the product is of good quality and has been manufactured and the result can be relied upon, and we can verify that by doing inspections, there is no reason why two different companies could not submit the same application.
I agree, but the problem is that if the dossier is the same dossier, and if you have a national evaluation and the decentralized evaluation from another national authority, the evaluation can be different, and that can be a problem.
For generic, I doubt that it would be so different. But yes, in that case, if there is a difference, then there is a possibility to refer the application to the centralized system, which will arbiter If there is a divergence between member states, then the European system kicks in and is in charge of resolving differences.
My name is Mimi Dako from Ghana FDA. There's a proposal to establish an African Medicines Agency within the Africa region. And the fear for some of the smaller regulatory agencies is that if there's a centralized application, the not so strong smaller regulatory agencies would lose out in capacity building. And we are trying to fashion this on the European Medicines Agency's centralized procedure. Is this fear genuine, or is this taken care of? I'd like some explanation on that. Will the smaller regulatory agencies lose out because the review is done by the bigger and stronger regulatory agencies, or is this not a genuine fear? Thank you.
No, here at TMA, first of all, I have to say we'll see it in following presentations, but in the committees there are members appointed by all the member states. So they're all represented there. And then if there is capacity in a small, to carry out assessment, to be rapporteur, for example, in small countries, European countries, this is actually encouraged. It is true that probably, I don't have statistics here, but bigger countries, they carry out more assessments. But this is not because the small countries are not allowed. This is actually the contrary. It's because they sometimes have less capacity, so they can benefit from the work of the others. But I have to say, even here, this is actually under review, and the EMA is trying to put all the member states, to give rapporteurships to all the member states more than what it is done so far. So, yeah, I would say if the European system is followed, it could inspire the African agency. We are aware of it, and I think it should be actually. We hope to inspire the African agency with our system. Yeah. Yes, you want to add.
In the committee, as Ricardo said, all member states are represented, and every member has the same voice. So Germany, 90 million plus, and Malta, 300,000, have the same voice. So there is no difference in terms of population. Yes, of course, we've seen, and with Brexit, the situation has become more obvious. We've seen that some member states do more than others because they have more resources, more access to expertise. But any expert has the same voice as another expert. It's not a question of nationality. We don't have preference. We have realized that maybe we were relying too much on some member states. You know that you've seen in the papers that the UK was doing probably 20% on average of our procedures. But with the announcement of Brexit, other member states have stepped up and they are recruiting more experts. They are engaging people. So they are actually trying to replace the expertise that we may miss after March 2019. And we have also set up multinational teams of experts, so we are not just limited by political boundaries. We can look at expertise across the board. And remember that you will see that our committees, their work is generally prepared by working parties for very technical aspects, such as in particular the quality, the manufacturing aspect. And in the working party, you may have a different distribution of expertise, meaning that the rapporteur may be from Germany, but the expert in the working party will be from the Netherlands or will be from Ireland. We've seen actually this sort of medium-sized state in the EU taking a lot of application. Belgium, Netherlands, Ireland are doing a lot of work. So it's not just a question of size, it's a question of engagement, European engagement more.
Good morning, Sven Schubert from the European Association for the Study of Obesity. You already touched upon it, Agnès. What's going to happen to the British NCAs, and are they going to remain inside the framework, or how are we going to interact with them?
I was wondering when the first question on Brexit would come.
Well, we can't.
Okay, I'll answer because it will. Otherwise, it will come back on a regular basis, Ricardo. So I think it best is to address it up front. You know that the UK has expressed its wish to withdraw from the EU. This will take effect on the 30th of March 2019, and this has overall three main elements of impact. The first one is legal and regulatory, because when the UK becomes a third country, which is what the Brexit means, all the provision in the legal EU system saying that the marketing authorization holder must be based in the EU, or that you have a qualified person for pharmacovigilance or for quality based in the EU, this will still apply. So this means that companies that are based in the UK will have to be based elsewhere in the other 27 member states. And there are a number of legal provisions for which. The same for the committee membership. The members of the committees are appointed because they are coming from EU member states. So from 30th of March, in principle, the UK will have no members in the committee. That doesn't mean we cannot use UK expertise as foreign, forgive me for using that, but foreign expertise, because we can use currently American expertise, Canadian expertise, or African expertise when we assess particular Article 58 applications. But this is the principle. Now, what is going to happen in the negotiation, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. Even if I had one, I don't rely on it. So we will see. We are listening. But the political decision has been made, and we have to follow the legislation. The second one is operational. So we'll have to look at how the UK accesses our databases. Is it possible? Not possible? Again, there are legal implications to this. We can still use a contribution from experts, but they will not be by right members of our committees and working parties. And the third aspect is the one that is also quite important for us, is relocation. We will leave the UK. We have been told that we will leave, we have to be in Amsterdam by the 30th of March, meaning that we're probably going to move between 1st of January and 30th of March 2019. So we're leaving this beautiful building, which was built to our specification. It does not belong to us, but it was built to our specification. We have been in this building for 4 or 5 years. And this means relocating 900 families and finding houses, not so easy in the Netherlands, finding schools, that plenty of them, and moving for some of us who have partners working in the UK. I'm not going into details, but it's a very complex and very technical issue, which we have to synchronize because we also hold a number of databases for the EU, which we have to move, etc., etc. So it's a complex situation. We're trying to prepare the best we can, and we generally are quite good at preparing. And we will see how it goes in the next months, but we are preparing and packing. Thank you.
If I may add, there is some guidance that the EMA has prepared for companies to prepare for Brexit. It's on the web. So if you want to know the details, let's say, of what is the position right now, as Agnès said, everything could change with the negotiations, but we don't know. You can have a look at it. It's on the EMA website.
Next presentation, now it's Martin Harvey, who is also part of the international team. Martin, you have the floor.
Good morning. I get a sense from the questions you're asking that actually you're perhaps a little bit more sophisticated audience than I had anticipated. But like Ricardo, we're going to start off by a very short clip of a video, and then we'll go on to the next presentation.
When you're sick, you want every chance to get better. Your doctor will prescribe the best medicine she can provide, which could be an innovative treatment. But who ensures that your medicine works and is safe? The European Medicines Agency, EMA, is here to protect patients. Working closely with national authorities, its scientists assess, supervise and monitor medicines long before they appear in pharmacies and hospitals, and all the time while they are on sale. When a company wants to put a new medicine on the market, they need to send all of the available information on how the drug works to EMA. The agency assesses all the evidence And if the benefits are greater than the risks, it recommends to the European Commission that the medicine can be marketed in the EU, Iceland, Liechtenstein and Norway. Since its foundation, EMA has given the green light to over 1,000 new medicines, many of which are innovative. EMA's work doesn't stop here. As long as a medicine is used by patients, EMA looks out for unexpected side effects, so it can act quickly to protect the health of people in Europe. The agency also supports the developers of new medicines and treatments. To make all of this happen, EMA brings together the best and the brightest minds in a network that spans the whole of the EU. It means you can trust treatments to be safe, effective, and of high quality wherever you are in Europe, so you can focus on your health and what's important to you.
So, with that, I've been asked to set the scene about what is it the agency does and how do we do it. So, as Ricardo just mentioned, the European Union is quite a complex beast. Over 500 million people, 28 member states, 24 official languages, and approximately just over a quarter of global sales of medicines happen here in the European Union. That's quite a responsibility for the European Medicines Network, of which the EMA is a part of it. So who do we do it for? Well, across the European Union, there are about 4,000 experts that have been nominated to work with the agency and participate in our committees. Since the creation of the agency in 1995, we now have 7 main scientific committees, and we'll come on and talk about those in a little while. And their work is supported by about 28 working parties that Ricardo just mentioned, and about 900 staff located here in London, in Canary Wharf. So how are we organized? Just to get you an idea as you go through today and tomorrow, but how is the agency organized as a body? Let's start off in the top left-hand corner with the management board. So the agency is supervised by a management board that brings together representatives of member states, of the main European institutions, so the European Commission and the European Parliament. And importantly, it also includes, on our supervisory board, representatives of patients, representatives of doctors, healthcare professionals, and also veterinarians. We are an agency for human and animal health. So already there, I want to give you the idea that the agency is not just the regulators, but also tightly involved with civil society and actually involving people outside of the regulatory bodies in the way that we work and the way that we're managed and supervised. We have an executive director who, as you heard earlier on, is not well today, but he is responsible for the agency. We have the staff, the 7 committees there, and we'll come on to those in a moment. And the reason why the national authorities and the experts are at the bottom of it is because they are the foundation of what we do. So the European experts and the national authorities, they are the bedrock of what happens here in this building and what happens in the medicine system. And we have close relationships with the European Commission. You saw in the video, we make a recommendation to the European Commission. It is the European Commission that signs off the decision whether or not a medicine is licensed for use in the European Union. And we're closely supervised by the European Parliament as the democratic voice within the EU. So it is a complex network within which the EMA operates. So just give a short schematic of it. Ricardo introduced the idea of having 2 main routes for approval of medicines in Europe. The centralized procedure, the one application, one assessment, one approval. That's the centralized procedure. We have the national procedures shown here at the bottom of the slide. They both feed into committees, and we'll come on to those in a moment, either the CMDH or for human medicines or the CMDV for veterinary medicines or the EMA committees. The work of both sets of committees are supported by the same working groups. I say that because it's important to understand that they are the same standards and the same experts that drive and support the work of the European medicines system, whether it be the work here at the EMA or through the national procedures, which means that regardless of the way a medicine is approved in the European Union, they are approved to the same high standards. So let's go on to the committees. We have 7 main committees here at the agency. The first one that you'll hear an awful lot about over the next 2 days is the CHMP. Just to say, if anybody uses an acronym today or tomorrow that you do not know, please put your hand up. We have this incredible belief in our own importance here at the EMA, and we have our own language which uses lots of letters. So if you don't understand it, please do stop us. We will not be offended. So the main committee is the Committee for Medicines for Human Use, the CHMP, and its equivalent on the veterinary side, the CVMP, Committee for Veterinary Medicinal Products. And their responsibility is the assessment and the recommendation for authorization of medicines for human and veterinary use. And on the veterinary side, the CVMP has the additional responsibility of making recommendations for maximum residue limits for medicines in animals of food of animal origin. But what are the other 5 committees? Well, we have committees that have been developed and added to the agency over a period of time. And these particularly focus on the sorts of things that Agnès was mentioning earlier on, the special populations and the new technologies. So the first of these in 2000 was the Orphan Medicines Committee, the COMP. I'm trying to socialize these acronyms so you get used to them over the next couple of days, the COMP. So that's the Committee for Orphan Medicine Products in the year 2000. Quickly followed in 2004 with a Committee for Herbal Medicines. And the responsibility there is to draw up the monographs and assess scientific data for herbal substances. That was followed by a very important special population, children. So the Pediatric Committee that was created in 2007. And that was quickly followed in 2008 by the committee looking at advanced therapies. 2012, and we'll come on to a little bit later during the day, there was a major revision of the European legislation focusing on pharmacovigilance and the safety of medicines in Europe. And that is driven through the committee, the Pharmacovigilance Risk Assessment Committee. I won't spend details on there because there's an awful lot of information later today talking about that. So those are the 7 committees that form the bedrock of what we do here at the agency. So how are these committees made up? Who sits on these committees? Well, mainly, and this is quite a generic overview for you, there is one member and an alternate nominated by each of the member states. So this comes back to Mimi, your comment earlier on. So in each member has an equal weight, regardless of the size of the member state. There are also members from both Iceland and Norway. Liechtenstein hasn't yet proposed any members, but they could technically nominate a member as well. Now, 4 of the 7 committees that we've just spoken about, they have patients and healthcare professionals, not in an observer role or advisory role, but as full equal members on the committee. This is really, really important for the work of the agency, that it's not just regulators sitting around the table, but actually we sit together with consumers, patients, and healthcare professionals in the work that we do. In fact, these committees meet in this room. So the CHMP, in 2 weeks' time, will sit in this room here. The members will sit in the front row, so the lucky ones sitting in here in the middle row. This is where the committee members sit. The back row behind you is where the experts and the alternates, they come and sit. And for the colleagues sitting on the far end of the room, that's where the pharmaceutical industry sits when they come in to be grilled. So if you're feeling the seats at the end of the room slightly hot, it's because they've been nicely warmed by pharmaceutical industry. So each committee has a chair and a vice chair, elected by the committee members themselves. And all the members have a 3-year mandate, and these can be renewed. Now, to come a little bit to Mimi's point and what Agnès and Ricardo said, the assessments of each committee are prepared by a rapporteur and a co-rapporteur, but they are peer-reviewed by the committee. So it is not a single voice. It is the committee's opinion at the end of the day. So the rapporteur will go away with his or her team of assessors, and the co-rapporteur will go and do his or her own work separately, and they come together. And sometimes it's a perfect match, either yes or no, but sometimes the different teams will come up with different issues and different thoughts. And so the work of the committee then is to see how can we mesh the thoughts of the rapporteur and the co-rapporteur teams and to then come to an opinion of the committee. So the experts, you're going to hear an awful lot about experts because they are incredibly important to the work we do. And we've included on the program for today and tomorrow a number of the experts who will come and talk to you about the way that they work in the committees. There are over 4,000 of them. As Agnès just mentioned, these experts mostly come from the national regulators. But clearly, because of the sorts of products that we deal with here at the agency, not all the expertise are necessarily found in the national authorities. So we do include academics who have perhaps a lot more information, a lot more experience in certain fields. We include experts from outside of the European Union. And they're particularly coming back to Mimi's point. You will hear tomorrow, we'll be talking about our so-called medicines for all, the Article 58 procedure. So if these are medicines that are coming into the EMA for use, for example, in Africa, we will involve experts from the African countries where those medicines are intended to be used. So we will take and bring in the expertise from wherever we need to. We're not blinkered to only being focused on Europe. So, and the other thing I just want to touch here, if any of you know the idea of Edward de Bono and his hats, his multiple hats, I like the idea of you come in, an expert will come in perhaps through the front door wearing his or her Italian hat or German hat, but as soon as they come in through the front door, through that revolving door, this hat magically turns into a blue hat with 12 gold stars. That means that when they come to work as a European expert here, they're not representing the national authority. They're here as a European expert working for the European system. And that's incredibly important, the way we work, to make sure it is a common European voice and a common European perspective. As Ricardo made the comment earlier, each and every single expert makes an annual declaration of interest. Now, this is available on our website, and you can go and click on every single declaration of interest and see, has this person got involved with pharmaceutical industry? Do they have conflicts of interest, competing interests? So the importance for us is to manage any competing interests so that you know that the work of the agency is impartial and free from bias, and that there is absolute integrity in the outcome of our work. I won't go through this in particular in depth, but I just want to come on to a couple of things about what the agency does and what are the key areas for us. First is the development and access to medicines. The access is an incredibly important point. So we are committed to making sure that patients have timely access to medicines. And so what we're trying to do is everything we're trying to do from development support during the development of medicines to the approval and the post-authorization surveillance is about patient access. It's wonderful to spend 10 years developing a medicine and then spending years talking as regulators. But if in the end patients don't have access to the medicines, it's not been necessarily a good use of time or resource. We'll spend some time later on today talking about guidance. We, here within the agency, we develop the scientific guidelines on the quality, safety, and efficacy, both in terms of the development of medicines by industry, but also in terms of the standards by which we, the regulators, assess medicines. We'll talk about scientific advice later on this morning and about some of the programs and initiatives we have to support research and innovation. You'll hear an awful lot about PRIME, which is a very important initiative we have here at the agency, and the support we have for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. As Isabel and the colleagues will talk about straight after me, we are acutely aware that many of the new innovative therapies are coming on from academic spin-offs and the small, medium-sized companies. And so we are wanting to engage with the small and medium-sized enterprises, with academia, so we can help nurture and develop and support that particular work. The evaluation of medicines, I think we've probably covered this quite a lot, but it's here for reference. The committees, the experts, the engagement with patients and healthcare professionals. And it's about working together. It's about avoiding the duplication and having an effective, efficient system across the European Union. And the safety. Our job is not just finished. Once the piece of paper is signed and the product is approved, our work isn't just finished. We continue to supervise and watch over the medicines once in use. And we'll talk about later the Pharmacovigilance Risk Assessment Committee, the Pharmacovigilance System, and in this interesting new tool of the public hearings that the colleagues will talk about later. We had our first hearing last September for product valproate. And again, this is part of the pattern you will hear today and tomorrow about the agency trying to reach out and be more inclusive about the people we involve in our process, to involving the voice of the patients, involving the voice of healthcare professionals in our work. So with that, thank you for your attention. And please, over the next 2 days, enjoy yourselves.
Thank you, Martin. More questions to Martin? Yeah, please.
Hello, my name is Dobravka Koštialová. I am probably the only representative from EU national competent authorities from the Czech Republic. And I have one question only. How often is the mandate of committee's member renewable? Thank you.
So the mandate is a 3-year mandate. And for the member, they can be renewed as many times as possible. The chair, though, is only twice.
Claudio Viscoli, University of Genoa, Italy, Academy. Maybe you're going to talk about that later, but I was wondering, there are countries like mine in which the time elapsing between the approval of the EMA and the actual availability of the drugs for the patients, I'm talking about antibiotics, I'm an infectious disease person, is very long. So can EMA do something? Can EMA do something for shortening? Because this is the problem of pricing, and really we wait 1 year or even more, and sometimes it's very, like for new antibiotics, for example, is very dangerous for patients.
It's a very good question. In fact, the European Medicines Agency is not in charge of assessing the added therapeutic value or relative effectiveness, nor is it in charge of pricing. And that's a very important national procedure, and they're very jealous about it. But what we have set up, and we recognize the issue you mentioned, AIFA, for example, the Italian agency covers all this aspect in one agency, but us, we are only in charge of benefit risk. But in order to try to speed up the process and facilitate and not ask companies to do sequential development for this purpose, we join forces with the HTA bodies who are coming on the voluntary basis to here, and we agree on comparators, we agree on the duration of the study, we agree on endpoint that may be more relevant for health technology assessment. So we try to integrate the two elements of benefit risk on one side and relative effectiveness on the other side in one single development, so it speeds up the process of development. So this is, we will still judge only on benefit risk, nothing to do with cost effectiveness, with about cost, pricing, and so on. And they will judge on their own criteria. So you can, I'm not really answering your question because what you're talking about is what happens after the benefit risk and the decision from the Commission. But we have published some data. We can find the reference for you on comparing the. Normally, the relative effectiveness of determination is supposed to take 90 days in Europe. It's called transparency, but it is sometimes longer. I don't think we can do apart from helping people to make the decision faster, but that's at this point in time. There is also a recent publication from the Commission on a proposal to work on this aspect, which is called the new regulation on health technology assessment. But it is just a proposal at this stage, so it is not in any way voted nor implemented.
Hello, I'm Mounting from the Taiwan office in the EU, and you just said you will send a recommendation to the European Commission. And which unit of the European Commission in charge of review your recommendations? And do they have the capacity to review your recommendations? Okay, thank you.
Okay. That's quite a sophisticated question, that one. So the technical answer is DG Santé, which is the health Directorate General. If you really want it, it's Directorate B5. That's for the European regulatory geeks. Santé B5. But the real question there is: does the Commission have the capacity to assess our opinion? Yes. Well, the decision of the Commission actually is taken through what's called comitology, which is the procedural regulatory procedure within the European Commission, and it involves a consultation of the member states before the Commission actually signs off. And so there is the possibility for member states to have input after the opinion. I have to say that almost every single opinion from the agency is signed off and approved by the European Commission with positive input from member states. There are rare exceptions where the member states have actually raised questions, and just a couple I can think of. There's one particular product where it was a patch contraceptive, and there was a concern raised by one member state that if the patch was thrown down the toilet, that the hormones would leach into the water system and perhaps impact fish. And so we then had to work out a process system that the patch, once it's been finished, goes into a little plastic envelope and gets thrown away. So they tend to be things like that, or public order. Or there was one particular case of a milk yield promoting hormone where the European authorities basically said it is against the European policy of the Common Agricultural Policy to actually promote milk yield, and so that was not approved. But they don't second guess us on the science. It tends to be for policy issues rather than anything else, but in very, very rare instances.
Because of this comitology procedure, actually the time between the opinion of the MA and the decision takes 60 days for a new product, which is quite long compared to the 210 days of the normal procedures. But this is for this reason that what could be seen as only a purely administrative function is actually taking a little longer than expected.
Hi, I'm Gilly Spurrier from the Melanoma Patient Network Europe. I just have really one comment on, everything comes down to risk-benefit assessment and your interpretation of risk-benefit assessment. And I know you are incorporating patients more and more into this, but it is quite important now with patients having to suffer evaluations within their own countries that you actually include the risk-benefit perspective of patients to a greater degree.
I'm not sure that's a question, it's a statement, and I think we agree with you here. In fact, so tomorrow morning, the very first session tomorrow morning will be about benefit risk assessments, and one of the CHMP members who's been most involved in developing the whole concept of benefit risk assessments, Christine Dunder, she will be here talking about that. So something we've spent a long time developing and thinking about. And including, and Isabel will be talking about this later, the way we involve the patient voice.
We also involve patients in scientific advice, which is our process before approval. When we discuss with companies their development plan and tell them what we want, we now involve systematically patients. We involve them in the orphan designation. We involve them in pediatrics. So actually patients, before we get to the step of benefit risk, are already involved. And we have our patient and a consumer, a working party, which advise on more general issues rather than product specific. So we try to cover all angles, but you're absolutely right. And it's also interesting to see how the FDA, for example, has approached the role of patient in a slightly different way, because they agree on patient report outcomes rather than on the product specific, but they also have advisory meetings which are public. So there is a different way from regulators to involve patients, but we have the same concern. We are very clear that this is an added value. Maybe when we had the first meeting of the comp, I was there at the time, and people said, oh, you know, the patient will come, and they are not scientists, they will not understand, we have to be nice to them, but they will be there sort of an excuse. And actually, these people were very stunned because they contributed to the discussion, they take assessment, or they do exactly the same job, but their role is an added value because they safeguard what we do. So we don't forget, we're not just doing procedure for the sake of a procedure. We do a procedure to get to a result which allow a product to get to the patient at the end.
It is something that we've been doing since the beginning. So go back to the late 1990s and the HIV/AIDS treatments. You know, I was in the CHMP meeting when the patients came in, spoke to what was then the CPMP, about the role of patients, and it was a phenomenally important meeting. And similarly, since you're from the multiple myeloma, I was also in the meeting at the CHMP when the thalidomide victims came in, and we had that discussion. I can tell you that was probably one of the most emotional and important and impactful meetings I've ever been in, to have thalidomide victims, multiple myeloma patients, and the CHMP talking about this. So we've taken it seriously over the years. We have a way to go yet, but we are on that journey.
A very good transition to the next module about engagement with stakeholders, and we will hand over. There will be other opportunities to continue with questions. Don't be frustrated. We will try to keep the time for this type of discussion, and also informally at coffee break and lunchtime. Thank you, Martin.